Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We'll go ahead and get started. So for today, we're going to talk about several topics that are all meant for standardization, efficiency, and control and communication. So we're going to talk about templates, best practice, how to make sure that the permissions in OpenAir are working to help you advance, your advantage. How can we keep eye on status of our projects? We'll talk a little bit about the Newsfeed. There's some new features released in the last OpenAir release cycle. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the issue module, how some customers are using that to accomplish some of the PMO goals. So with regards to standardization and efficiency, there's a lot of ways we see customers using OpenAir to do so. One is, being able to save time through project setup process, being able to utilize templates. And obviously the benefit of a template is the ability to basically do a standardization of different types of projects. We at TopStep, we have implementation projects and we have business efficiency projects and other types of projects. All are all covered on different templates. And it's okay to have multiple templates. The key being is having those templates as a starting point for your project setup in order to save time. Also, as part of an efficiency of standardization is understanding what data do you want out of OpenAir for oversight of your projects. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can do that inside of OpenAir. But what kind of status tracking are you looking for, and who are you feeding that information to? And lastly, phase task structure is a key decision point for customers using OpenAir. How do I set up my phases and tasks? Can I standardize those on templates as we discussed? But also, what is the correct volume of phase task structure? So we'll talk a little bit about what we see there as well. So with regards to templates, obviously the big benefit of using templates is being able to create multiple templates, as you can see here on the right, and then be able to call those templates as needed. So, we see lots of different permutations of this. The most common is you're creating a project in OpenAir and you want to call a template. So, creating these templates, and you want to make sure when you're creating a template, if you want to force only those templates to be called, that there's a checkbox on the template that said, allow this project to be used as a template. And this gives you a little bit of control so that you have a limit to what projects can be copied. So your users aren't going in and copying, an existing live project to start from versus using a template. Now, there may be benefits to actually copying from an existing project. So really that's a business decision. If that's the case, then that's perfectly fine. But there is the option to control which projects can be copied, which we see a lot of customers benefiting from. Also, in this day and age, generally OpenAir is never a standalone system. So generally, there's other systems that are feeding OpenAir in one way or another. So, if your project's getting created from another system, maybe a CRM or maybe from a financial system, there's two different options for benefiting from templates. One is there is a way to have the template called out through an integration. So when the project is created, you can call out the template and have the project creation process mimic what you would do directly in OpenAir. So that's an option we do for other customers coming from a CRM. We can call out a template based on the type of project. The other option is where the project comes in as a shell and you borrow and steal and copy from templates into your project. So this is where you would go into the template, copy phases and tasks into your project to start to build out. And that's also pretty popular as well because some projects aren't able to be templatized based on what was sold. If you're a product company and you're implementing multiple products and your project could have any combination of products, might be very hard to templatize that. So instead, we could have templates per product and be able to go in and copy into a project from multiple templates and build out your project plan that way. So those are some of the ways we see customers benefiting from the templates. But we do highly, recommend if you can templatize your delivery, you will be, it will add efficiency and standardization. And again, the template is nothing more than a starting point. Generally, you can add tasks, remove sections as well. When you do use a template in the UI or even through an integration, you can also decide what from the template you're bringing through. So in this case, we could say we want to bring in a set of billing rules or rev rules, or we want to copy the project approvers or some of these other settings. You'll notice the issues module is also here, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But all of these can be used. It can also be defaulted when you copy from a template, either via in OpenAir, as well as set through integration. So just determining what is in the template that you want to bring through, and making sure that you get those boxes checked as a default or through programming, so that they always bring in the right data. Form permissions. So a lot of times there's data in the project that different roles should be able to see but not manipulate. Our budget is one of the ones we see very common, where the budget for the project is set via a operations team or a finance team or through an integration, but they don't want anyone manipulating it, anybody in the PMO or the project. So, using simple form permissions inside of OpenAir by role is a really good way to control what fields are editable, what fields are read-only, or what fields potentially are hidden. If you've got fields that are cluttering up your project properties or your tasks that are not necessarily needed by people doing their job, then I'd recommend hiding those, maybe from everyone but administrators, so that those fields don't just clutter up the screen and cause people to say, what is this for? Which is really not needed by them. So inside of OpenAir, there's, you all will be aware, there's modify form permissions on all the different forms. There's also a customization link within the global settings. And this is where you can go in field by field and decide, is something required? Is it read-only, or do we hide it? So this is the most basic of form permissions that OpenAir gives you. A more complicated form permission that we see is using permission rules. And this can be really handy when there are certain fields you want to hide under certain circumstances. And we see the most common is, say, by project stage, for example. So if a field is a required field when the project stage equal in progress, and it's not required when the project stage equal internal or pipeline, this is where these really become powerful to basically enforce validation inside the project forms that will require people setting those fields so you get consistent output and reporting and visibility. So these permission rules you can really go kind of crazy with, and you can get pretty complicated. You can do it based on role, but you don't have to. It can be based on the value of other fields. You can also limit pick list values here. So you can say if project stage equal this, or if this offering equals this, then limit the values of this particular drop down to only these values. And so again, we're trying to be efficient. We're trying to keep errors from happening as much as we can, and really get standardization as part of the project setup. Custom fields. So we created these on our projects. We see a lot of customers doing this and really being able to, track project status. So being able to have green, amber, red, and then have different notes required. And again, using permission rules, we can say if the project status is amber or red, then we require notes. Also, we can have different drop downs contingent based on the rules as well, required based on the status as well. We've also had some customers where we were able to actually automate this project status functionality, where a customer says, given these business rules, if these business rules occur, then we would like the status to automatically be set to amber or red. And so as long as you can define those business rules, then we can customize OpenAir through scripting to go ahead and set the status based on a combination of elements that are defined, which can then become really powerful. But every week I get a report out of OpenAir for all the projects, and I only and it gets sent to me automatically. I get all the amber and red projects in my inbox. I can see all the notes. I can see all the data that I need to determine what actions need to be taken and what conversations need to be had. So creating this custom field and all the fields related to it can be a very handy and very powerful way to be able to get data quickly. In the new release as well, there came out with the newsfeed being visible in the list view. So the newsfeed has been around for a couple of releases, but it was very limited visual without drilling down into the project. In the last release, they gave you the ability to use the newsfeed to be able to create these custom tags inside the news feeds with a description, and then being able to see those inside of a project list view. So you can see here in this screenshot, we have the news feed, and we have whether the different tags that we've created, different color schemes as well. And quickly I can go through and visualize the different tags and news feeds based on what I'm looking for. And then from here, I could drill down to get more information, to get down to the notes. So for those of you not familiar with the news feed, it's kind of like a chat. Each record, you create a record, you assign a tag to it, and then the next week you assign a new record and a new tag. And so the benefit here is you get to keep the history of the different status changes versus the custom field where you don't have that history. It's just an update on a weekly basis or some time period. Here you get to keep that history, but the one that shows here in the list view is only the most recent news feed. So maybe the project was red in the past, now it's on track. So now we see it's on track, but I can also drill down and see what are the history of the different changes of the status by drilling into the news feed. The only downside of this news feed is reporting. It's not yet available in reports. So other than the project list view, if you're generating a report out of OpenAir, it's not a visible tag. So I would suspect that's going to be the next next goal of this feature within OpenAir product support. But today, it can be downloaded as part of a list view, but that's the only way you can get it out of the system. And it is a role permission, so you can give people the ability to edit or to create new or read only as well. And again, here you can put the notes in. So some examples, of from what we do. You can have the notes, and again, the status of each note. And the way to access the news feed is through the, at the project, you have a little link. And you can also see the latest news feed at the top of the project view as well. So by drilling into the project, you can see the latest status as well as in the list view. So the issues feature. So many of you are probably aware that there is a related table called issues out of the box within OpenAir. Very rarely does it actually get used as an issue table. Generally, when you're tracking an issue, you need that issue log to be more customer collaborative than what OpenAir allows you to do. So many times we end up taking that news feed and we end up using it for other purposes. So a couple of other ways we've seen this, and you can rename the issues log table rather, and you can create custom fields. You can do all the things you can do in OpenAir here. But some of the things we've seen like is an action plan. Like you might have a phase task structure that's more at the milestone level, design, tests, et cetera. But then there might be a list of actions that you need to verify have been completed, that are part of every project, and be able to assign those actions to users that are on the project, and be able to see when they're expected to be due or when they were completed, or what the status is of those actions. So that's something that we see a lot of customers taking advantage of, and we actually do so ourselves, is being able to create, and you can store those actions in a template as well, which is really nice. So you come over from the template with a standard set of project actions, and then be able to go through and assign those and track those as complete. You can also run a report across all projects to see what actions are overdue, or what actions are not yet completed, but within the date range. So those are good reporting there, cross projects as well as within projects. It also gets pulled up into the out-of-the-box status report if you choose to do so, inside of OpenAir as well. Another way we've seen this is customers use these for actually putting status reports in the system. So being able to type in the text of, what have we accomplished this week? What have we accomplished? What's our planning for next week? And those types of things. And each week you have a separate and distinct record that has all the status details that you want to track for internal reporting, potentially even pulling that into reports for external reporting. So that's another way we've seen it. And they don't have to be single purposed either. We've had some customers where they'll use it for dual purpose. And so by doing that, you can have different types of status or different types of using of the issues, and be able to say this is a action issue versus this is a status issue. And by doing so, you can use the permissions we talked about earlier to show and hide different fields that are needed based on the type of issue or type of status or action you're creating. So again, you can get really creative here and be able to filter only on the actions versus only on the statuses, or anything else you think that you could track here. But it becomes a bit of a collaborative event within the project team, being able to see the status of all these things. And there's also some alerting in here when someone is assigned an issue. And so you can actually send alerts through there as well. So something to think about as you're considering how OpenAir fits into your overall project methodology. Speaking of alerting, there's several options when it comes to communication inside of OpenAir. There is a budget alert. We don't use this as much as you would think, but you can go through in a project and you can set up different budget alerts and have those go out on a regular scheduled basis, and you can kind of derive the business rules of when a budget alert makes sense. And so that is kind of the one of the out-of-the-box alerts you can use. You can also customize alerts and notifications. So there's a custom notification feature that would need to be enabled, but just remember, if you do this, you have to turn off the standard notifications. For example, if you have the standard notification that says when a project owner is assigned a project, send them an email. If you turn on the custom notifications, you could end up, sending multiple notifications. So depending on what you're going to do here, you would need to recreate the standard ones, but it would allow you a little more control, and also creating some that are not standard. So you can do some when these conditions are met, or when one of these conditions is met type of custom of considerations, and then be able to send custom emails to team members as these different triggers are covered. So think about custom notifications if you feel like you need to expand your ability to communicate and be able to do things that OpenAir standard ones don't cover. Of course, at the end of the day, reports are, the most comprehensive way of getting OpenAir data. and being able to pull that information. So, we have a lot of our customers, we recommend a lot of using schedule reports. And I've had one customer that used to spend hours every Monday morning sending a report to their customers of how many hours they worked the week before and what was accomplished and all of that other things. And now we put a report together, we put it on a schedule, and now it just goes to, you can send reports to customers that are not OpenAir users. So there's a way to be able to create a contact in OpenAir. As long as that contact has an email address, you can then schedule that report to go to a contact, which would then be able to get to your customer. So this is a really good way of sharing project status, sharing how many hours have been burned on a weekly basis, and not having to go in and manually create those every time you need to do so. And obviously on-demand reports need to be created and shared across the organization. On every project, there's a report dashboard that we recommend highly, being able to stage reports there. Those reports should be non-filtered, meaning they can be run across any project. And so you could have different reports that show how many hours we worked last week, or how many hours we worked the last 6 weeks, that are sitting on the dashboard that can be run from any project, where a PM could quickly get information that they might need. So that would otherwise be something someone would have to go dig for inside a report module and go filter it by the projects I care about, et cetera. And so using those dashboards as well can be really helpful in creating those reports. So the summary for today, OpenAir is a good project management tool. There are a lot of ways to control who's seeing what data, who's seeing what, who can do what, with roles and permissions, making sure that you define the goals of your PMO and making sure that OpenAir is aligned with that. So it's not a one-size-fits-all tool. It can be used by many customers, many ways. So generally, we try to recommend customers using it. We use it internally to track our time, to track the project status, track our budgets, and send alerts as well to ourselves when we need to, so we're aware of certain situations. So there's a lot of different ways that OpenAir can fit into your PMO goals. Thank you for joining today. As you all may or may not know, TopStep is a leading PSA consulting firm. We've been around for quite a while. Our focus really is NetSuite OpenAir product and all the products that are able to be connected through OpenAir. As implementations as well as integrations and customizations are all the things that we work hard on. So please connect with us. If you don't get our newsletter, please visit our website. You can sign up for our monthly newsletter as well as updates for future webinars. We also have a LinkedIn group for OpenAir users if you have any questions, as well as our Twitter account for following us. We pride ourselves in customer communication, and we have a whole resource library on our website.